Hello, my name is Carol Gertin, and in my family my grandmother used to make a quilt for each grandchild that graduated high school, and she just used what she had. We just put scraps together and created a pretty picture. We thought it was pretty, but we just used what we had. And historically, when the ladies were making the quilts and they made what they had out of necessity, then for instance they would take the sacks, the flour sacks that had the flour in it, and once the flour was used up, then they used the sacks to make aprons and tops and blouses and quilts. And then they would put another piece of flannel or something else in the center and quilt them together, sew them together so that it was warm for the person on their bed.
Whenever we talk about the flour sacks that Grandma used to use to make her things with, they were not soft like we've got today. They were very rough, but they were durable and they wore pretty well. And so they would make the girls a simple dress or the boys a simple shirt. They would use them for table coverings, pillowcases, because they were the right size. And also they pieced them together to make quilts out of them. I have one old quilt, and right in the center you can see a trouser leg of the pants going right in the middle of the quilt. Well, that woman was using what she had, and she had one leg of one pair of pants left, and she used it in the middle of the quilt. But they were very good about making use of things that they had and creating them into something else. And that's why we like to use all of our scraps and make things of beauty with them in a family history of reusing things instead of wasting things.
This is where I sew. I actually won this big machine. This is another quilt that we made. Just when we find beautiful fabric, it's nice to put it together and have yet another quilt. This is another quilt that was made here. Oh, here's another scrappy one, just filled with scraps. But it's pretty. And then here's another one that is all Christmassy. It's all Christmas. Oh, and here's another one. You'll like this one. This is skateboards. This is a whole quilt for a young man who likes to do skateboarding. So this is all skateboards. That turned out pretty good though, didn't it? Because again, so you can use your scraps. Which people don't know that's what you're doing, but that's what I'm doing. Yes, I love Bernina. Love it, love it, love it. So this is a demonstration of, you make the quilt top however you want, whatever design and size that you want. And then you put, this is called batting, and there's several kinds of batting. This is just a polyester batting. You put that in between, and then you put a back on it like this. So it's sandwiched together. They call it a sandwich. And then when you quilt around here, and it puts all three of these layers together. That's what makes a quilt. Then you sew around one of these shapes, or you can zigzag in between it. But the quilting is another complete set of sewing after you've made. If you sandwich it together and then you quilt it, you can see the different designs right here in this quilt. And that is what's sewing the three sandwiched together. You can tell on this one, all the sandwiching. And then at the end you put a strip like this that binds it all so you can't see all the rest of the sewing, and it completes the quilt once you have the binding on. Okay, these are all scraps, and we try to take the scraps that are left over from a different project and cut them a similar size so then we can decorate with them again. So these are all, see, these were like 4-inch squares left over from another quilt. These might be 5-inch squares, but they came from another quilt, and then we sew these scrappy ones together into yet another quilt. But quilters use each piece of fabric. We don't throw very little away, because with us, we can always see another quilt out of it. And nobody in our generation wanted to be wasteful. This one is a demonstration of how we take all the little scraps, sew them all together, and make another quilt from it. So we can preserve our scraps. Here's another one, just scraps. But if you know what you're doing, you can make a design like this one comes down diagonally over and over again, and these don't match, but they coordinate. And so we make another quilt out of the scraps from the other quilt that you've got. I had 4 sisters, and all of us worked together on this quilt for 2 years to get it ready for my mom's 40th anniversary, and she was surprised, so that was the best part. This is a quilt that we made for my mother on her 40th wedding anniversary, and my parents went to Purdue University, so we put that up on the top. And then my mother's mother was from Italy, so we included an Italy flag. They had a company called Cassini Talentrazzle. They made this house, and so all of this has to do with Indiana and my grandparents in that state. Then my dad's parents were in Texas, and this is their house and their oil well and the flour for the state of Texas. And then they had 9 kids who all graduated college. And so this is the different mascots from all the graduations that my parents got people through school. Then this is their grandchildren. We made a block and put the name in of each grandchild, and at the time of the anniversary, 2 were in the oven. So that's the yellow one, because we didn't know what they were back then, and so we talked about them being in the oven. Then this long one here is, my mother had 9 children, and so she hung a lot of clothes on the line. So we made a dress for each of the girls, 5 girls in a row, and then 4 boys, and it's got their birthday and their name on all of it. Then we had a white bunny, a brown dog, and Sarah was our black dog. So this whole thing shows an example of my mom's family. Then my dad worked for city service, and so this was on his desk, and here was the city service emblem that he worked for 36 and a half years. Then these are like sports and games that all the kids did. They were in scouts and swimming, and I think this is tennis and basketball and running, and so we made one that showed all the kids' sports. And my parents were very big into the church, and this was their church, and my dad designed that for the Boy Scouts. Then this was all the trips that they took whenever they went on a cruise or they went to Canada, Mexico. This is what their colors were at their wedding when they had their wedding. And then this was the places that they moved to, and it says, "Home is where the heart is." So the saying goes, and Dad and Mom taught us, as it transfers become, I can't read that, then we value the happiness because home is a state of mind. And so my sister created Texas, Oklahoma, and Louisiana, where my parents spent time raising children. Now, most of the people who do quilts are more than happy to show others how to make what they're doing. I find that the young people today are on their computers and not interested in true design like I do. But I would be happy to pass it down if anybody was interested. I've already made many quilts for my children, and they have them at their homes. And of course, a couple of them might be interested in quilting, but they're all working and raising families, and so it's not convenient for them right this minute. And some of the rest of these quilts I give to the Abused Children Network, and the abused children take these. Some of those little children don't have anything, and so I'm happy to make some little kids' quilts and give it to them. Some of them we give to hospitals for sick children, and some of them we give like to the police. If they need to wrap one of the children up, they have a quilt to do so. And those don't take me very long. Something like this takes a bit longer, but I can knock out a little kid's quilt in 2.5 hours. And so it's the material is donated and just people's scraps, and we make it into something nice. It doesn't cost me anything but my time, and I enjoy doing it. So I do fear that it's not going to get passed down to the next generation unless somebody indicates an interest in learning, but hopefully that will happen still in my lifetime. And then here's a hand. This one has 49 different squares. No two squares are alike. This is a little angel. I think there was 49 squares, none of which are alike. I still don't see a flying geese. Jeez.